Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory Mooney. I am the IT and security expert and evangelist here at Progress. I also am the host and manager of the Defrag podcast and blog. Please check that out at blog.ipswitch.com to get access to more content on how to protect yourself and secure your data at rest and in motion. So to get started, we are going to be talking about the benefits of managed file transfer today and why you need to secure your data at rest and in motion. And the first thing I like to always bring up is that due to the various levels of data protection regulations going on around the world being passed, such as the GDPR a couple of years ago, and now we have the California Consumer Protection Act in California being passed, along with a lot of other legislation on a state-by-state basis, we need to make sure that data is secure. This is personal identifiable information, needs to be secured, whether it's somebody's IP address, social security number, name, address, email. All these types of information are personally identifiable information, PII, and it needs to be protected. Once we would consider regulated industries such as healthcare, finance, manufacturing, or government, now every industry is considered a regulated industry today due to these data protection laws being passed around the world. So you need to make sure this data is encrypted at rest and in motion, and that IT has the ability to have security controls in place to authenticate who has access to what data and when they have access to that data. So the big six of data protection is, and these are the things that you will need to ensure that your data is being secured at the highest level. And the first thing is end-to-end encryption at rest and in motion. You must make sure that this data is always encrypted to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks, or if there were a data breach, if they were to access data, they would not be able to understand what that data is without the proper encryption keys. So this is probably the biggest thing that you need to do with any data, whether it resides on a server or on a user's device. So end-to-end encryption is a big one. And with that, in conjunction end-to-end encryption, you're going to want to have multi-factor authentication, which will make sure that, especially during the pandemic where everyone's working remotely, you are making sure whoever accesses business critical data or sensitive data or personal identifiable information, whether it's customers or prospects, that people who are accessing this data say who they say they are. And passwords are the weakest link nowadays, so you can't just use a password to protect this data, because if, say, an employee's personal passwords are stolen, that could translate over to the business world. So you need to make sure MFA is in place, and in conjunction with that, you'll want to make sure that you're using single sign-on. This makes it easier for employees to, sign in through a single sign-on login form, and then, authenticate with multi-factor authentication. And they only have to do it once and still have access to all the data, apps, services within your IT infrastructure. And the biggest reason for this is, and I would like to also say with multi-factor authentication, it allows you use a personal device to also authenticate who the employee is, as opposed to just one device. This makes it easier to make sure that this person is who they say they are, because obviously, as I said, passwords are not the best way to protect data anymore. You will also need tamper-evident logging in case of an audit or a data breach to prove that whoever accessed that data is who they say they are, whenever that is, and also to make sure that those logs are not being tampered with. And you will need this data in the event of an audit or a data breach to prove that you were encrypting all that data to the highest standard. And you want it to be easy to use. Whatever service or apps or services you're using to move data and how your employees are using that, or your end users, you need to make sure it's easy for them to use so they can easily collaborate, to avoid them going upon themselves to use their own apps and services, which we like to call shadow IT. And this could be using, say, an enterprise file sync and share tool such as Google Drive or Dropbox or OneBox, where you don't get the highest level of encryption. You don't necessarily have the visibility in IT to know that data is not out in the wild, and you know where that data is at any given point. And There's also the issue of data redundancy, where the same data has been copied or being shared from various links. So that is very important. And then automation and scripting this is more, if you have a homegrown app or service to move data from one place to the other, such as SFTP or FTPS, it's best to have a solution that has this out of the box so you don't have to deal with all the issues of scripting with the maintenance and management of that. And if an IT person were to leave and another person came on board, they would need to know how those scripts were created and how they were maintained, and that can become a maintenance nightmare. And as I said, these are really the common issues with scripts, and there's a larger chance for human error, data loss and data redundancy, as I said. And there's no robust way to ensure service level agreements are met. So that comes to the benefits of why you would want to use a managed file transfer solution. The reason you would want to use a managed file transfer solution is out of the box, you can easily automate and transfer tasks without the programming knowledge, as opposed to, say, using a PowerShell script or a Python script. You can monitor, schedule, and run automated file transfers on a daily basis, whether you're a healthcare company who needs to send data to insurance providers or a clearinghouse back and forth each day to provide the proper care to, say, patient, just as an example. And, you have more control from any device, regardless it's a personal device or a company-issued device. IT will have more management over where that data resides, how it's being encrypted, and in case of a data breach. And then, there's built-in reporting for IT, as well as if you were to be audited, you could easily pull up reports as opposed to having to scramble and provide that data if you were using your own homegrown system. And it makes it a lot easier for users to collaborate. You want a managed file transfer solution that's very easy to use because you don't want to jeopardize the security and control, and you also don't want your employees and end users to basically go upon themselves and use some other form of file transfer software, which would be considered a form of shadow IT, where you would lose the visibility. So these are the various levels of risk depending on which type of file transfer solution you're using. Obviously, the highest risk is plain FTP, which generally now a lot of these are password protected, but there's no real encryption at rest. So that's kind of a big faux pas if you're trying to stay compliant. These are easy to set up, easy to use, but you run into the issue of things such as FTP sprawl, where too many servers are set up with the same amount of data. You get data redundancy on multiple servers, and it becomes a maintenance nightmare for IT. And then, other homegrown systems such as SFTP and FTPS, there's still no real support. It's a little bit more secure because you get the encryption, and they are considered compliant to data protection laws to a certain extent, but you're going to have to use your own scripts, and obviously that becomes a maintenance issue. And if you're using open source modules, you are basically hoping that the community who is creating those apps and services are making sure those services and apps are up to date. And that's kind of an issue if you're trying to stay completely secure and compliant. And if you really want to, not lose sleep at night, you're going to really want to use something called a managed file transfer solution, because it provides all the vendor support, the stability of knowing that a third-party vendor has your back with this, and it allows for ease of use and to avoid shadow IT, and you can avoid things such as data loss, data corruption, data redundancy. So a managed file transfer solution that Progress provides is MOVEit. And what's great about MOVEit is that you can basically secure, transfer business critical information very easily. You can secure and control the transfer of critical data between users, location, or business partners externally. It's easy for external users to easily log in, and you have complete visibility and control over where that data is, where it resides, who has access to that data, and make sure those people are being authenticated so you know who they are. And also, it's being encrypted to the highest standard. And we have a few different ways you can implement MOVEit. You could use MOVEit Transfer, where you could implement it on your own server, If you want to have that control, whether it's if you want an on-premise solution, we provide that. We also provide MOVEit Cloud, where we can provide you the servers, and we can manage and have your back in regards to the secure data transfers, and in the form of a SaaS solution. I want to thank you all for joining this quick video today. And if you have any further questions, you can contact me directly at mooney@progress.com. And I also highly suggest to check out a free demo or a free trial if you want to get your hands dirty of MOVEit at ipswitch.com. Thank you very much.